364 days a year, this is just a fax machine. But today, it is so much more. On National Signing Day, every college around the country, coaches gathered around the fax machine, waiting for national letters of intent.
He may be a freshman, but he doesn't play like a freshman.
Next on ACC Live Access, it's National Signing Day. Who's the next freshman sensation? We look at how every ACC school's recruiting class stacks up. But whose is the best? Florida State seems to always have a top 10 class, but Clemson may be closing the gap in the Atlantic. And who's number one in the Coastal? Our recruiting guru is here to rank every team. Plus,
and the big fella jams it home.
We want the dunk. Gotta get that dunk. Two Noles are on the business end of our dunk of the day. That's all on ACC Live Access now. This is a very special ACC Live Access. I'm Jeff Fischel. Today, great access for ACC fans for National Signing Day. And Florida State got off to a great start this morning when linebacker Matthew Thomas announced he's headed to Tallahassee. Watch the reaction in the Seminoles war room.
To attend Florida State University.
Big get for Jimbo Fisher, Matthew Thomas, the number 3 outside linebacker, number 14 overall recruit in the country, committing to the Seminoles. That is the access we're giving you today. We break down how every ACC school is doing today. We're giving you so much access, we have Kevin Olson's national letter of intent. There it is. The big pro-style quarterback is headed to the U. That's right. He's going to Miami. I'll talk to Kevin and his brother, NFL tight end Greg Olson, at 5 p.m. today. Greg, another hurricane. In just a minute, the best recruiting expert in the country joins me, 24/7's National Recruiting Director, JC Shurburtt. I want to know what questions you have for JC. Tweet us your questions at the ACCDN. I'm watching our Twitter feed, well, when I'm not looking into the camera and talking to you. If you're one of those people who think, what's the big deal? A year ago, Stephon Diggs was a high school senior who chose Maryland. And just a few months later, he was doing this.
He may be a freshman, but he doesn't play like a freshman.
Not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and Joes.
Stephon Diggs is going to bring it out, and Diggs across the 15 to the 30. He could go. My goodness.
So let's see how Diggs, Terps, and the rest of the Atlantic Division are doing so far. Florida State, number one recruiting class in the division. Clemson is right there. How about Maryland, third, and then NC State, Wake, Syracuse, and Boston College? The Seminoles aren't just number one in the Atlantic. They have the number one class in all the ACC. It could end up with a top 10 class nationally. One of the top FSU recruits is defensive end DeMarcus Walker. Joining me now, the National Recruiting Director for 24/7 Sports, JC Shurburtt. JC, thanks for taking time out. Let's start there talking about DeMarcus Walker. He enrolled early. What does he bring to the Seminoles?
Well, he's just another talented defensive lineman that Jimbo Fisher and company are going to add to that roster. You know, they've recruited quite well at that critical position. I think that when you look at it, you added DeMarcus Walker in, a guy that can slide inside, go outside. He's got exceptional athleticism. That's just another piece to the puzzle. And the fact that he's there early really helps in terms of getting him ready to replace some of those draft picks that they lost.
We talked about Matthew Thomas, showing him choose Florida State. He's a big pickup for Jimbo as well, right?
Absolutely. And, you know, Matthew Thomas, I think, had some things not happened at Miami down the stretch. I do think he probably would have been a Cane, but Florida State had a quiet confidence about him just about the entire process. You know, I think that when you look at all the factors and consider that, you know, even though two of Florida State's best South Florida recruiters, Eddie Grant and James Coley, departed, and they still were able to land Matthew Thomas, I think that's tremendous.
Now, JC, the Seminoles also stole away Jalen Ramsey this week from USC. They got him signed just a little while ago. He could be big for that defense as well, right?
Definitely. And again, you look at the roster, you combine him with a young player like Ronald Darby, and certainly there's a lot of talent in the defensive backfield now at FSU and really on defense, period.
Yeah. Now, Florida State and Clemson dominated the ACC this past season. The Tigers, they're doing everything they can to keep up with the Noles in recruiting. Just in the past hour, Dabo Swinney got a nice present, Mackenzie Alexander.
Oh, yeah. Mackenzie Alexander is one of the top corners in the country. He was kind of one of those guys that was hard to pin down as far as where he was leaning. It was a 3-team race: Auburn, Mississippi State, and Clemson. But Clemson's been right there up at the top the whole time. Probably should have projected the Tigers had I been smart, just because I think that that's probably where he always wanted to go. He can step in and start right away at Clemson.
Now, the best Clemson recruit may be linebacker Dorian O'Daniel. Talk about him.
Well, he's just an and get a lot of players, and O'Daniel's one of the tops in the country.
Now, on offense, we know Taj Boyd, Sammy Watkins are back, but Andre Ellington is gone. Can recruit Tyshawn Dye step in and fill that void?
Absolutely. Tyshawn was really one of the top backs in the country. Just committed early and stuck with it from Elbert County, Georgia. Sort of the same region Clemson got Terry Allen out of way back in the day. Terry was from Banks County. I think that you look at him, he's a bigger back than Ellington, more of a power back, but also has enough speed to make big plays in Chad Morris's offense.
Yeah, it looks like he could thrive in that offense.
Absolutely. He's a guy that he's different, like I said, a different type of back than they have, but certainly has enough going for him to where he can make some things happen within that scheme.
Now, we're getting questions about other teams in the Atlantic Division. The Mighty 07 tweeted me. He wants to know about Maryland. A strange year last year, 4-8. They lost all their quarterbacks, as everyone remembers. I know offensive coordinator Mike Loxley is considered a strong recruiter. Overall, how do you assess the Terps class?
Absolutely. I think in the D.C. area in particular, Loxley's been strong. The guy I really like and look to make an immediate impact is JUCO receiver Dion Long. You can line him up opposite Stephon Diggs. Defenses come into games thinking they have to stop Diggs. Well, now that you have Long on the other side, provided you have somebody to throw him the ball, I think that offense takes on a whole different dimension. Speaking of throwing the ball, quarterback Shane Cockrell, I think, has a bright future at Maryland. 6'1", 205 pounds. Isn't the tallest quarterback, but has a strong arm and is athletic. I expect him to make an impact on that program as well.
Again, we're talking to National Recruiting Director for 24/7 Sports, J.C. Shurburtt. J.C., looks like Maryland's doing a good job. How about the new coaches in the current ACC schools? We have Steve Adazio at Boston College. We also have Dave Dorn at NC State. Break down those two recruiting classes for me.
Well, Boston College, they went there and got a late start, but the thing about it is Adazio can develop and evaluate talent. I really like the quarterbacks they have in this class. McKay Lowry from right there in Massachusetts, I think, is going to be a player. He's a good athlete, has a strong arm. I saw him in New York at a combine back in April, and I think he'll do a fantastic job there. Dave Doran, again, tapped into some of his old roots, getting some players out of the state of Michigan. Also, Jonathan Alston, the linebacker receiver from Bunn, North Carolina, is a key recruit because he's so versatile. He can play linebacker, receiver, whatever you want him to play. So good first effort, but I would encourage people to judge those guys after their first full cycle.
All right, JC, thanks. That's the Atlantic Division. JC Shurburtt will break down the Coastal Division recruits, and he'll give me his overall ACC top 5. That's coming up. But now it's time for other stories making headlines. Here's what's happening in the ACC now. Michael Snare has done it again. Last night, he made it 5 game winners in the past 2 seasons and 3 in the past 3 weeks. 56-54, the final over Georgia Tech when he hit this bucket at the buzzer. Snare was trending nationally on Twitter after the game. I tweeted it last night. I need new adjectives to describe what Snare does in the clutch. Mark Gottfried doesn't think Lorenzo Brown will be ready to play for the Wolfpack tomorrow night against Duke. Brown is officially day-to-day with that sprained ankle. The Duke game wraps up a 4-game stretch for NC State that gave them the best of the ACC, UNC, Virginia, Miami, and now the Blue Devils. That is the ACC now. More with J.C. Shurburtt is coming up. He's the Director of National Recruiting for 24/7 Sports. And remember, if you have a recruiting question for him, tweet us at the ACCDN. Coming up, in his first college game, Duke Johnson broke 2 long touchdowns. He went on to become ACC Rookie of the Year. Who's the next big-name recruit to walk onto campus and run into the record books? More signing day next.
Out with the old and in with the delicious. Commit to bold taste with the new Flavor Resolutions menu at Ruby Tuesday. 10 entrees starting at $9.99. Try our savory barbecue brushed ribs and bacon-wrapped shrimp. Or take it up a notch by adding coconut-crusted shrimp to our mango salsa-topped Caribbean chicken. Plus, enjoy our endless garden bar, free with any chef-inspired entree. Ruby Tuesday. It's all good here. Start the new year with savings. Visit rubytuesday.com today for a $5 coupon.
What's better, bigger or smaller?
Bigger!
So which would you rather have, a big treehouse or a small treehouse?
If it's big enough, you can have a disco. Oh, yeah.
Why do you not want a smaller treehouse?
Because it wouldn't be able to fit a flat screen TV, and then the TV would be about this big, and you would have to hold the wire. In the position you would hold the wire, you wouldn't be able to see the TV.
That's a pain in the buns.
Yep. Yeah.
It's not complicated. Bigger is better, and AT&T has the nation's largest 4G network.
The ACC Digital Network, the ultimate video destination for ACC fans. Exclusive highlights, live streaming games, and original live programming, unique access to the student athletes of our time and the legendary voices of all time. Defining moments, personal stories, incredible analysis from authentic ACC sources, cutting-edge content from the leaders in the digital space. The ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday.
Good afternoon, Chase Sapphire. This is Stacy from Springfield.
Oh,
Hello?
yes, I didn't realize you'd be talking to an actual person.
You don't need to press 0. I'm here.
Reach a person, not a prompt, whenever you call Chase Sapphire.
This Dunk of the Day brought to you by Ruby Tuesday.
Seminoles switch everything there. A block. Turpin blocked it, but it fell right into the hands of Miller. And Georgia Tech, on Daniel Miller's dunk, takes the lead 27-26.
That was a big-time finish in traffic against some big bodies. He went over a lot of people, Steve.
Share the love this Valentine's with a free dessert when you make reservations on rubytuesday.com.
Welcome back. This is ACC Live Access. I'm Jeff Fischel. We're giving unique access to how ACC schools are doing on National Signing Day. I'm talking with 24/7 National Recruiting Director J.C. Shurburtt. He's answering your questions, so tweet me or tweet the ACC Digital Network at the ACCDN. Every team dreams of finding that superstar who bursts onto the scene as a freshman, just like Duke Johnson did last year.
Here in Miami, it's the Duke Johnson Show.
What a move! Duke-O-mania continue!
He is amazing.
We are watching somebody who could be a legend at Miami when it's all said and done.
Here he goes, Duke Johnson to the sideline. The freshman is something special.
So let's see how the Canes stack up with the rest of the Coastal Division. Despite going just 7-6 last year, Virginia Tech is having a strong recruiting year. North Carolina and Miami jockeying for position right behind the Hokies. UVA and Pitt both bringing in very solid classes. Duke building on a bowl game, and then Georgia Tech. All right, joining me now, J.C. Shurburtt, the guru of recruiting for 24/7 Sports. J.C., one of Frank Beamer's best recruits is a legacy. Yes, there is another Fuller. This time it's Kendall.
Absolutely. You know, Kendall Fuller, 5-star corner from Good Counsel High School in Maryland, has good size, good back pedal, good instincts. And, as a recruit, rates a little higher than his brothers, but his brothers were such great players. I don't know that we can christen him as good as his brothers right now, but he's impressive and should see early playing time, particularly with Antoine Exum on the injury shelf. Also, Holland Fisher is a 4-star safety out of the Richmond area, almost like a linebacker in his size and build, but can cover really well. Perfect fit for Bud Foster's defense there in Blacksburg.
So it does really look like Bud Foster's retooling, and he's going to have some great building blocks.
Absolutely, and you look at it also, Wyatt Teller, a defensive lineman from Northern Virginia, who they beat the entire country on. I think he could end up being a pretty special player too.
Meanwhile, Al Golden inherited a lot of challenges at Miami. They've had to pass up on a chance to play in bowl games the last 2 years. JC, it doesn't look like that's hurting the Canes with recruiting this year. A strong class for Golden, right? Including defensive back Artie Burns?
Absolutely. And you look at it, the numbers were not going to be large for Miami this year. So what you look for is quality and difference makers. And I think Artie Burns, as one of the top, not only defensive backs, but athletes in the entire country, is a big part of that. And also, quarterback Kevin Olson. I think what Miami's lacked for a few years is the ability to distribute the ball to speedy playmakers, and Kevin Olson is the perfect quarterback to do that. If he comes in and develops, I think he will have a lot of success at Miami, and of course, he's a legacy as well. His older brother, Greg Olson, we all remember him, was a tight end for the U.
As I mentioned, the Olsons coming up at 5 p.m. We'll do a Google Hangout with them here on the ACC Digital Network. Now, like Al Golden at Miami, Larry Fedora also arrived at Carolina with off-the-field issues that weren't of his doing. Ronnie Taborn tweeted us all. He tweets us all the time. He wants to know about the Tar Heels. You've been really impressed, right, JC, with the way Fedora's staff is recruited?
Absolutely, and it's not a terribly large class. I think 17 guys right now, but they've recruited very well in terms of making sound evaluations. And I like this class because it has balance. You have defensive backs, defensive linemen, a quarterback, a running back, a couple of just versatile playmakers. So I think that when you look at the overall balance to the class, North Carolina's in very good shape.
TJ Logan ran for over 500 yards in the North Carolina State title game. Talk to me about how Fedora was able to pick up one of the top quarterbacks in the country.
Well, Logan is a guy that when you give him the ball, something's going to happen, and it's usually good for your team. Not the biggest kid in the world, but 5'10", 165, but certainly has the speed. Very impressive at the Shrine Bowl, the Carolinas, and a big-time playmaker. Also, Mitch Trubisky, the quarterback, that they have in this class is the #1 dual-threat quarterback in the country, according to 24/7 Sports. Was an offer from Ohio State, but Ohio State took a kid out of Texas that was maybe a little bit better fit for their system. So he ended up kind of coming to North Carolina, and I expect Trubisky, who's already on campus, to make some big-time plays during his career as a Tar Heel.
This seems like a perfect fit. Bryn Renner's a senior. It seems like Trubisky could fit right in as soon as Renner's done.
Absolutely, and coming in early, is going to help him kind of get molded into the system and learn the system. And in case something happens to Renner, Trubisky should be ready, or hopefully this early enroll time will help him prepare.
Now, one of the new ACC schools, Pitt, seems to have built a really solid class. It never hurts, right, JC, to bring in one of the best offensive tackles in the country. Dorian Johnson is a great hometown pickup.
Oh, no doubt about it. Pitt has some talent in that area, and they're able to recruit Western Pennsylvania and the greater Pittsburgh area with success. Dorian Johnson was committed to Penn State, but when all that stuff happened at Penn State, he backed off and then decided to stay close to home. Franchise left tackle prospect. Wouldn't surprise me to see him start, all 4 years at Pitt. They also picked up a signee in Tyler Boyd today from Clarendon, Pennsylvania. That's a big-time deep threat, really impressed out of the U.S. Army All-American Bowl. Held off a late charge by Tennessee to keep him in the fold.
JC, two teams we haven't mentioned at all, Louisville and Notre Dame. We know Louisville joins the ACC in 2014. Notre Dame starts playing 5 games a year with ACC schools in either 14 or 15. So let's talk about them. First, the Irish coming off playing in the national title game. What do you think of Notre Dame's recruiting class?
It's one of the top classes in the country. I'm very impressed with what they've done. Especially as they continue to recruit well along the lines of scrimmage. Hunter Bivin from Kentucky is one of the top overall tackles in the country. They have Stephen Elmer, who's already enrolled from Michigan, who's very impressive. Just overall, building the lines of scrimmage has been a priority for Brian Kelly, which I think surprised some people because he came in as kind of had a reputation for slinging it all over the yard and being more of an offensive guy. But and then the 2 running backs that they have in the class, I think, are, as good as it gets as far as a duo goes there. So very impressed with the Notre Dame class, and they're still waiting on one more guy later today, and we'll see what happens there.
That's right. We don't mention names who haven't signed their national letter of intent just yet. What about the Sugar Bowl champs, the Louisville Cardinals?
Well, Louisville continues to hit South Florida very hard and recruit generally well in South Florida. They also went into New Orleans this year, which I thought was pretty smart. Landed a commitment from a linebacker there the other day. It's going to rank somewhere in the 30 to 40 range, but because Louisville goes and gets into talent pockets where there's a lot of players, sometimes you can sit there and look at a 3 or 2 star that's going there and say, well, this guy's probably a little better simply because of where he plays. Also, James Quick, one of the top wide receivers in the country, held off Ohio State. He's a Louisville kid, and Charlie Strong kept him home. So that was a huge pickup right there.
All right, now, JC, last thing. We ran through both divisions. Give me your top 5 overall ACC recruiting classes.
Well, right now, you have to go with #1 with Florida State. They rank highest according to the 24/7 Sports rankings. I think the Noles have put together another outstanding class that are finishing strong. #2 would have to be Clemson. Number 3 is Miami, although it's short in numbers. I think that it's still a solid class. 4 will be Virginia Tech, and then 5, North Carolina. So I think those 5 programs, not only usually recruit better than everybody else, I think those 5 programs are the potentially best programs in the ACC at the moment, and they should recruit well every year and should win a bunch of games.
J.C. Shurburtt, National Recruiting Director for 24/7 Sports. Thank you so much. Great job breaking down the ACC for us. You can follow J.C. on Twitter at J.C. Shurburtt. That's with 2 T's. Just want to make sure we get that right. By the way, he is going to be busy all day today. Phone calls, texts, you can bet he's following the latest news, and he'll have it out on his Twitter feed. For the last week, he's been peppered with Twitter questions. He's done a great job of answering them. We're not done talking about National Signing Day. At 5 Eastern, we'll have a live Google Hangout with the Olsen brothers. The Olsen sisters would have been a very different kind of Google Hangout. We figured on National Signing Day, the Olsen brothers made more sense. Miami Hurricanes, their star QB recruit, Kevin Olsen, and his brother, NFL tight end Greg Olsen, also a Hurricane. We'll talk about why the Olsen family loves the U, and I'll get them to compare what it was like being recruited. That's tonight at 5 p.m. live here on the ACCDN. Again, thank you, J.C. Shurburtt, for all your time and wisdom. Thanks for watching. See you at 5 for the Olsens.